Hello and welcome to our review of linear equations benchmark. We're going to work with the first two items, solving one and two-step equations and solving equations with fractional coefficients. We'll cover the rest of the items in another lecture. We'll start with one-step equations, and we look at problem one. The reason this equation is called a one-step is because it takes one step to get the x by itself. We look at this problem and say that the x has a 3 being added to it, and we undo plus 3 with minus 3. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. We now get x equals 11. In one step, we got our answer. For problem number 2, I'm going to ask you to pause and see if you can get the answer as well. Okay, I hope you were able to work this one out. We see that the x has a 7 being subtracted, so we add 7 to both sides, undoing the minus 7, leaving x by itself. 4 plus 7 is also 11. Bit of a coincidence there. Come down here to number 3. These are called two-step equations. They take 2 steps. And it gets a little bit trickier here because the order that we undo is just as important as when you simplify an expression, the order that you would do the operations. So when we look at this, we can think of PEMDAS as our order to do expressions, and in reverse, these are equations, we will undo the equation. So if you are ever asked to simplify or evaluate, you'll do the PEMDAS. When you're asked to solve, you undo, and sometimes I say SADMEP. So we want to undo any addition or subtraction first, and we see that the h here has a plus 6. We undo that with a minus 6. If you do it to one side, you got to do it to the other. I then get 11. There are no more addition or subtractions in here, so we move up to multiplication division. There is a times by negative 2. Undo that with divided by. And we get h equals negative 11 over 2. Not a friendly fraction, but we allow improper fractions. They're helpful when moving a slope in later lessons, but for now we just leave it as h equals negative 11 over 2. Come back over to this problem. I'm going to ask you to think through how we did problem 3. Hit pause and see if you can get the answer for P. Okay, going in reverse order again, we have a minus 3 that gets undone with a plus 3, leaving 5p equals 14. The p now is still not by itself, but it's multiplied. We undo multiplication with division. We get p equals 14 over 5. Obviously, there are more than two-step problems we could do, but for this benchmark, we stop at just two-step, at least in the first few problems. We move on to some fractional coefficients. One of the ways to think about fractional coefficients as thinking of the coefficient as a multiply by the numerator and a divide by the denominator. So that turns into basically 3 steps as I do this number 5 for you. If we rethink about our PEMDAS, remember we are undoing, so we're going to go in reverse order. There's an addition we undo with subtraction. And when we get done with this step, we'll have an x being multiplied by 2/3. And one of the ways to think about that is that the x is being multiplied by the numerator of 2, so we'll undo by dividing by 2. And the x is also being divided by 3, and we'll undo by multiplying. A lot of kids like to undo the division first because they like to multiply. I like to do the division first, so I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides and get x divided by 3 equals 6. I do that because I like working with smaller numbers, but if you multiplied first, you'd get the same answer. Now, My x is still not by itself. It's being divided. I undo with multiplication. I get x equals 18. All right, give this one a try. All right, hopefully you got your answer. I will do this in the other order. I'll do the minus 8, but when I undo the multiplication division, I'll undo the division first to show you that it doesn't really matter the order. So I get a negative 5/3 x equals 20. Now I'm going to multiply by a 3 first, so I'll multiply by 3. I could divide by negative 5 either way. This gives me negative 5x equals 60. And now I'm going to divide by negative 5 and get x equals a negative number. Let's see. 10 goes into 60 6 times, so 5 would go in twice as many. That's 12. All right, this ends the lesson for dealing with solving equations, the top part of the benchmark where it's not quite too complicated and we don't have distributive property. Practice some problems from your review, and let's talk in class.